Welcome to the Juggling Mind and Money podcast with Steve Rowe and Jessica Schlupp-Taylor. Steve Rowe is the founder of Lucent Financial Planning and an award-winning independent financial planner. He helps you to use your money and have a great life. Jess Schlupp-Taylor is a psychologist supporting people through change, challenges, and forks in the road of life. Together, they will help unblock the sludge in your mind, stopping you from achieving financial and psychological happiness.
Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Juggling Mind and Money. I'm Steve, founder of Lucent Financial Planner and Chartered Financial Planner. And today, Jess is not here. Instead, we have Neil Bage, co-founder of Shaping Wealth. And Neil is here to discuss his work and emphasise the human in financial planning. Welcome, Neil. Thanks for coming.
Steve, you know what? Doing this live in your office, looking at your face. It's amazing.
I have an amazing face, I agree. It's highly clown-like.
Well,
Kids love it.
No comments. Yeah,
well, we all know it's true. And that's why, if you're listening, you can go on YouTube and see this clown face and Neil's remarkable face.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
In full glorious Technicolor.
Yep.
Probably 4,000K or something.
Yeah, probably is. All the pimples, all the spots, all the bags under your eyes, they all show up. Because
Yeah.
we're not wearing makeup, right?
No.
It's not like this is a TV broadcast.
No makeup, but I could give you tips on matching foundation to your skin tone if you want it.
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, I'd like that.
And when applying, like this could be the new makeup show, like apply upwards,
Right.
because otherwise you pull your skin down.
You kind of know too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's important to look at this stuff. So, Neil, who are you? Who is Neil Bage? Tell us about your background, what you do, what you're interested in, what you love.
Wow.
Those sort of things.
Okay, so I've had a potted history, I guess. So let's do the career side, because that's kind of, from an identity perspective, is what we all talk about first, right? So I studied to be a PE teacher. I did two things mainly when I did that. I did sports psychology and human biology. And that's when I fell in love with the brain. And ever since then, I've had this fascination with how the brain works, but more to the point, how it works when we introduce typically man-made situations like money.
Well, because that's made up.
It's a human invention, right? As are many of the other things that we typically struggle with as a species. They're not natural biological challenges. They are that evolution has helped us with. They are introduced into the system. That's why we typically struggle. So did that, realized I didn't want to be a PE teacher, and fell into the world of financial services.
That's a big leap.
It was a big leap, yeah. And I went into a company because they wanted help building a risk profiling tool, which kind of played to a little bit of my kind of background, and then never left the industry. And mainly because I realized, one, I love helping people with big challenges like money. But, we've typically never really focused on the human. We've spent a long, long time in this industry, this profession, looking at the numbers and the maths, and we never really understand the human. So kind of helping people like you and your team and other financial planners around the world bring the human story into the mix has been a real kind of privilege for me to do that. And, and outside of all of that, I love my movies. We've had this conversation. I love my food.
We've fallen out on the movies, I think.
We did.
Well, I haven't. You have.
No, I've fallen out with you. Yeah.
Argumentative little git.
Exactly. I love eating. I love eating good food, spending my time with good people. I don't think there's anything better in life than sitting around a table with the people who you love and just having a laugh, eating good food, and just living life. So massively potted history, but that's who Neil Bage is.
That's super. You fitted a lot in there.
I tried.
What do you eat at the cinema then? Let's put those two things together.
Right. So you know what? I try my hardest not to be a grumpy old man as I get older, but I've become grumpier. And one of the things that makes me grumpy is people who eat rattledy, crunchy things in cinemas who are sitting behind me.
Like crisps.
They open a bag of crisps.
Sweet wrappers.
Yeah. Well, crisps predominantly. And they open the bag and they crunch, and especially when the movie's silent, and I didn't pay, 15 quid to see how grumpy I am. But I'm sorry, you can't beat a good sweet and salt popcorn in a box.
Oh, mixed.
Mixed.
Yeah.
In a box, so it's not a wrap.
See, I don't want that surprise. I want 2 boxes, salt and sweet, so I can choose. Oh, I've had too many salty ones now.
Right. Do you not like the kind of the randomness of putting your hand in the box and never knowing whether it's going to be sweet or salty?
Like, I can put up with it. I like popcorn. It's good. You like popcorn.
Popcorn's good. Popcorn's good.
I've seen that. Yeah, but not. I want to know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
There's a whole psychology going on there.
I know what you're thinking. But it only relates to popcorn.
Of course.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, listeners, watchers on YouTube, you may have noticed Neil's excellent voice. I've often called you, haven't I, the best voice in financial planning. And that's easy to achieve, put next to mine. But it is great. It's very soothing.
Thank you.
Everybody, Neil's been on a podcast or 2 in his time. Seek him out and he will relax you into bedtime.
That's a sobering, worrying thought. I don't know.
That's what I do.
I like to know I'm making a difference, Steve. That's nice.
Okay, so when I started in financial advice, it was all about numbers because that's what you get put in this system of you got to do these exams and they're all tax-based, investment-based, doing some sums, stuff like that. And then over time I realised, because I'm sharp, right, I realised no one really gives a stuff. Most people get engineers. We know you give us stuff about the numbers, but everyone else, you're sitting there talking with them and you know there's a lot going on in their mind. So tell everybody about, why money is so confusing. We've already discussed how it's a human invention. It doesn't really exist anymore because no one's got a tenner in their pocket.
Well, that's a different dynamic, right? That's a new dynamic. But let's go back to the original question, right? Yeah. So if you think about us as a species, we've been around for, 5.5 million years, right? So the oldest known species or the oldest known ancestor that we can date us back to was Auroran tugenensis, right? Which is a species found in the Kenyan hills and carbon dated to 5.5 million years. And they know that species was bipedal, meaning it walked around on 2 legs. So we know that we weren't living in trees at that point. So the reason for saying this is it's been a long journey, 5.5 million years, the species that we would recognize in ourselves now. And during that time, obviously, the human brain has had to learn to survive and thrive. It's like the evolutionary 2-step. You need to survive first and then thrive second. And it's developed a whole bunch of amazing kind of tricks and tips, if you like, to navigate life and allow us to be where we are today, right? But along the way, things have been invented. And 3,000 years ago? So not long, whatever the data is. My colleague at Shaping Wealth, Brian, knows the kind of the date specifically. But money was invented. And it was invented as a means of exchange, a way to kind of, you give me something and I will give you something of value back. But the brain in our heads has spent 5 million years not having to deal with that at all, right? So it's had to try and learn how to do it. And from a very early stage, money became this emotional thing because we don't really understand it. We know what it does, right? I have money and I use it to buy things or to, whether it's an experience, whether it's goods, whether it's food, shelter, whatever. I need my money to exchange it for something else. But I've had to learn what that feels like, the trade-offs between, not spending or spending or, using my money for good or using my money for myself. There's lots of trade-offs that kind of happen with money. And so the human brain is woefully ill-equipped to actually deal with money. And there's a phrase that we use, it's an emotional lightning rod. Or even, let's use like a cattle prod. Yeah. The second we mention the word money, it triggers a whole neurochemical flood in the brain, typically of not good neurochemicals like cortisol, which boost our stress. And the brain gets flooded with these kind of conflicting messages and signals. And we've never been taught how to deal with that. And the way we do not deal with it, especially in financial planning terms, is by giving people numbers and charts, which we also don't really understand. So unless we address the fact that money is this emotional thing, we never really help people navigate what is in essence a landscape of feeling before we can give them meaning. So it's a new invention trying its hardest to kind of live within an old brain.
In our ancient brains. So I love anthropology,
Mm.
and our brains are built to survive, aren't they? But really, survival in the UK at the moment, we've got that down, haven't we? We're all right. Right. Most people are going to be okay. But we want to thrive.
Mm.
So I was discussing this with Jess last week. You know, all we talk about is how our brains go wrong, but it manages so much excellently well.
That's right.
You know, we're all breathing automatically.
Yep.
Lots is going on, and we focus on a few things that we're not great at.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that's okay, isn't it?
That's completely fine. That's completely fine. That's how the brain, your point about survive and, in Britain and we're fine. It doesn't mean that the human brain isn't constantly on the lookout to make sure we survive. Right. So we have certain parts of the brain, if you think of the amygdala, which is like an almond-shaped part of the brain that sits in the middle, it's our alert system.
Yeah.
It is constantly on the lookout all the time for danger or for threat so that we can survive. And I can give you an example of this, right? Or for anybody watching or listening to this. Imagine you're sitting in a restaurant and it's a big restaurant and it's crowded and it's loud, which they typically are. And over in the far corner, a waiter or waitress walks out of the kitchen and drops a tray on the floor, and it makes that clanky, banging sound, right?
Horrible.
Every person in the restaurant in that split second will hear it and will turn towards the noise, even though the volume in the restaurant is really high. And that's because our alert system, it focuses our vision, it focuses our hearing, and is always on the lookout to make sure that we can survive, right? So it's not that we've got that one down and we don't need to worry about that.
So people go tense, don't they? They jump.
No, that's right. And we've all heard of our fight or flight mechanism, right? And that's basically our sympathetic nervous system going into a state where its job is to get you to survive.
Yeah.
And you either fight for your life, or you get the hell out of there as quickly as you possibly can. That's what that kind of evolutionary safety net is there for. But you're right. One of the things that we need to do as well is realize, in amongst all that conflict and in amongst all the noise, how do I find the signal that allows me to flourish, that allows me to thrive, and allows me to live the best life I can? And to your point explicitly, sometimes in doing that, we tend to focus on what we do badly or what we screw up or a terrible decision I made 3 months ago, which is impacting me now, without realizing that, you know what, we're actually pretty amazing at what we do. This brain is navigating a lot of information every second of every day. And in the main, we are pretty good at what we do. Do we make bad decisions? Of course we do. Will we do something that, might have a negative impact on our lives? Of course we will. That doesn't mean you're broken. That means you're human. And the more we cut ourselves a bit of slack, and the more we realize that we are trying the best we can every day with the hand that life has dealt us, then that gives us permission to kind of breathe easier and when you can breathe easier, when you can give yourself a bit of slack, then you are in a much better position to actually go out into the world and thrive and flourish.
So in your example of a tray being dropped in a restaurant, once you realise it's okay, everyone goes, "Whee!" Because that's how you're trying to flourish, isn't it?
No, that's right.
Make some fun out of
That's exactly right. And you know what? Let me tell you a really interesting story here, right? I'm going to potentially go down a rabbit warren here, but there's a musical, a West End musical called Blood Brothers. And
I'm aware of that.
It's utterly brilliant. I've seen it like a gazillion times. It was my mum's favorite musical. And towards the, and if you haven't seen Blood Brothers, kind of spoiler alert coming up, but at the end of the show, there's a standoff between Eddie and Mickey, these two, the Blood Brothers, if you like. Yeah. And Mickey has a gun and he points it at Eddie, and the police come in, and the police come into the auditorium, right, which is really unnerving because you see police with guns like coming down the aisles and they're pointing at the stage and they're saying, "Put the gun down, son, don't do it." And Mickey lifts the gun up, and as he lifts it up, he fires the gun, and the police shoot at the same time. And even though you're expecting it, you know what's about to happen. The noise of the gunshots instantly puts you into a heightened state of stress. And it's manifested typically by everybody in the audience laughing.
Yeah. Nervous laughter.
It's a nervous laughter. So even when you expect the noise, even when you know what's coming, this part of our ancient brain is always on the lookout, and it goes, okay, I've just heard gunshots. Is this part of a show? Of course it is. Or is there something else I need to be worried about? But in 1/100th of a millisecond, or 100th of a second, sorry, it kind of goes, nothing to worry about. Ha, 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 get on with life. And we reset. That's how amazing the brain is at kind of keeping us in a state of kind of, or allowing us to survive.
So that is a fantastic point. And so that's our default reaction, isn't it? And it's almost instant.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I was reading recently how, I forget the time, but the amount of information we're bombarded with each day now is the equivalent to a lifetime's worth.
Right.
Say 300 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've got this ancient brain that's reacting and is being bombarded with all this information. It's about money, which is a human invention. It's a made-up thing.
Yep.
So, of course, we're going to get some things wrong. And there's nothing to beat yourself up about.
Of course. And also, Steve, let's be really brutally honest here. You know, as humans, we are born as storytellers. We're not calculators. And actually, we're pretty innumerate as a species. You know, and people go, oh, no, I'm all right at maths. And you go, okay, so what's 0.35% of 600,958? Well, I'm making the number. I know you're going to answer me, right?
I don't.
And it's a terrible example. But even the most basic maths people struggle with. If you look at numeracy tables across the world, we, generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, humans are pretty crappy at numbers, right? So therefore, we have this emotional lightning rod that is money, which is tied up to numbers. And it's just like a melting pot of challenges that we typically leave undressed and sometimes beat ourselves up because I made a bad money decision. Don't worry about it. We all do. We all do. We all spend money on things we shouldn't. We don't save enough. We don't invest enough, all of the things. But you shouldn't beat yourself up over that. That's just perfectly normal, given your brain is being bombarded with a gazillion other competing priorities that you have to give your attention to, and our attention span is not great.
So this is the common conception as well, that being a financial advisor, you should be great with numbers, and it's all about numbers. So when you meet someone at a party, you can imagine me at a dinner party, it'd be great, right? People say, so what do you do, Steve? And I say, I'm a financial advisor. Yeah, you must be pretty good with numbers, huh? And I say routinely, and it always comes across a bit flippant, it's about feelings, not numbers. But it absolutely is about feelings. Yeah. They will laugh and then stop talking to me because, you know, no one wants to be in a conversation with a financial advisor. But, you know, immediately shuts them down.
Brilliant. Right, let me now go find an estate agent next.
Yes. Tell me about your money or your feelings. No, thanks. Let's have a gin. So it is about feelings. The numbers always come secondary, I think.
There's a great quote by a neuroscientist called Antonio Damasio, right? He wrote a book called Descartes' Error.
Right.
And in that book, he said, we are not thinking machines that feel. We are feeling machines that think. And that pivot is really important. And that's how the brain has evolved, right? So data, and let me give you a kind of very quick, rapid neuroscience lesson here. We take in data, right, through our senses. Sight, touch, taste, smell, sound. All that is data. So sound are sound waves. They don't mean anything. The brain makes sense of them. Sight
is vibrations.
Yeah. Right. And sight is light waves and hitting the eye and the cones and goes into the visual cortex, and the brain reassembles the light waves into this. Everything that we can see around us, right? So everything going into the human brain is data. And the first process that the brain goes through in taking in data is it figures out what the emotional resonance is. How emotionally should I respond to this data? Danger, run, fight, flight, or whatever it is. Argue, step back, whatever the response is. The brain creates an emotional response immediately. And if it senses danger, it deals with that. If it senses, oh, actually, it's okay, it can pass through, then what happens is a message gets sent to the prefrontal cortex, and we start to think about it. Yeah. Right? And there's a whole bunch of other processes that that kind of follow that. But the point of saying this is it starts with emotion. Everything starts with emotion, how you feel. is the foundational level of every decision you ever make. You might not think like that because the brain's just dealing with it in the dark, if you like. It's not telling you, oh, I'm about to think about this. It just does.
Yeah.
And it happens so quick that you aren't consciously aware of it. But we just, and I say this to people time and time again, we are emotional creatures. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why we've survived, right? To be where we are now. And that ability to generate an emotion, to generate a feeling, should be given far more prominence in our conversations than the numbers. Because what you might realize is you give people the numbers and it makes them feel scared, or it makes them feel underconfident or inadequate, or name a word. So unless we flip the script and realize that, right, I'm having a conversation with a human being and primarily they are emotional, right? Let's not do this now. Let's figure out a better way to communicate. Let's find a better way to engage with this person so that I'm addressing their human needs first without overwhelming them or making them feel inadequate or whatever words that you want to use.
So it's really hard, isn't it, dealing with money? And then I think if you're looking at the numbers, like we're human beings, but surely it's being alive is about feeling. So everything you should do should be about how you feel.
That's right.
Perhaps.
Yes. So I guess it's a yes and. So yes, feelings are really, really important. But sometimes the signal gets slightly scrambled and we feel an emotion that actually is not justified given the data that's gone in. And that might be because of a past experience. It might be how you're feeling. It could be your environment. So let me give you an example. As a child, this is an example that we all can kind of resonate with. As a child, I grew up, I've got 4 sisters, my mum and dad, and we were all taught by my mum and dad what money is. In other words, my mum and dad's money story fused together and they passed the lessons down to the 5 children that they had. Now, one of the things that my mum said when we were kids is we weren't allowed to play Monopoly because she said, you're not playing Monopoly because money causes arguments. Right? That fate, money causes arguments, tattooed itself into my long-term memory, and it constantly resurfaced. Every time I needed to talk about money, I don't want to do this because it's going to cause an argument, and I don't want to have an argument, right? Now, you could then say to me, Neil, let's talk about money. And that feeling will come up. I will think, no, I don't want to have an argument. But it's not justified. It's an old story. And just because you want to talk about money doesn't mean that we will have an argument, right? We could have a genuinely good conversation about money.
You're still like that, Neil. I know, because I was trying to pay you for something and you wouldn't. I asked you 4 times, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's still in there.
Yeah, I think it is, and that's why. And these stories they just sit kind of dormant until they're triggered, and then they come to the fore, and a skilled financial planner for me, or actually, do you know what? Just a skilled human recognizes that actually I can see the response to this situation. I'm not going to sit in a position of judgment. I'm going to sit in a position of curiosity. And I'm going to say, Steve, I can see that, you maybe feel uncomfortable about this. Where's that coming from? Or any open-ended question that allows me to explore kind of like the embryo, if you like, of why this thing exists in you. Because if we do that, then yes, we get the feelings, but we can start to rewrite the scripts and we can start to have better, more meaningful conversations that are based on who I am today and not who I was 45 years ago or the stories I was exposed to 45 years ago.
Okay, so because of this, what we know, how we might not make the best decision based on how we feel now, but we want to focus on how we feel overall because we are human. We want to feel that. So that's where our old-fashioned brain can make us make a mistake for how we might feel long term, but it feels better right now.
Yeah.
That's how we're often reacting, which is not always the best.
It's not, and there's a reason why, though. So go back to our evolution story. We spent the majority of our evolutionary journey in what is known as an immediate return environment, which means if I was hungry, I ate. If I needed to take shelter, if it rained, I took shelter. If we needed food, I went out and hunted. I didn't sit and go, oh, We need food. I'll do it tomorrow. We didn't do that. So the brain was wired for immediacy. That's how, like, hardwired. It was hardwired for now. Do it now. And then as cultures have expanded and grown, and we as a society have evolved, we introduced what is known as a delayed return environment, where we would do things today, but we wouldn't reap the benefits until some future date. And let me give you a classic example from our world: pensions.
Yeah.
Right?
They're ages away.
You say to someone who's 30, give me your money and I'll give it back to you when you're 65. And they're like, what, 35 years? And even though intellectually we understand that, we know that if we exercise today, we might have a longer life, that if we eat healthy, all the things, we know that if we do them today, we will hopefully reap some benefit in the future. We can intellectually go, understand. But emotionally, it's a different thing, because the brain's being wired for now. It's not being wired for later. And so there's a mismatch immediately in the brain going, right, you know what? I know I shouldn't do this thing, but I've got dopamine, which makes me feel amazing right now. All these endorphins running through my brain, which make me feel great right now. I might not even get to the future. And we start to justify making the decisions for the now at the detriment of later. And for me, it's always been about trying to find harmony between those two things. If we want to have a good, long, successful, healthy life, we have to invest in ourselves today to give our future self a chance at having the best life possible. But we shouldn't deny the fact that we are wired to live in the moment, and we should live in the moment. We should savor the moment. And it's about finding the balance, the harmony that works for you, because there's no rule. It needs to work for you and your financial plans.
So that's what we're all about, harmony. Now, sometimes there's something that's best for your numbers. So it's more likely you'll end up with more money, say that way. Sometimes, well, always, there's best for your feelings. Where do you sit on? So there's those two ends of the spectrum, and then, just ignore it. Do you ever check? Are you going to look? Because some people are quite oblivious to stuff, and they'll only talk about it with us in our meeting.
Yeah. I can see that. It's a really interesting question, because I don't think it's as kind of binary as where do you sit on a continuum, if that's the right phrase. Feelings and fact, if you like, if you use those two as your two endpoints. I think when it comes to money, we flit between the two. I don't think yes, there might be a nice harmony place where we feel most comfortable. Yeah. Not really going to the feelings part, not really going to the numbers part. I'm quite happy here. I feel comfortable. But now and again, especially with a skilled financial planner, they need to be able to drag you to the far left. How does this feel? How is this making you feel, this decision? And they need to be able to take you to the far right by saying, do these numbers make sense to you? Does this add up? And I feel like the best skilled financial planners are really adept at understanding where people sit comfortably and having the skills to kind of move them along as and when they need to, in order to get the right response from people. There is no right or wrong. Your natural position is your natural position, but you can't answer every decision by not feeling an element of uncomfortableness, if that's even the word, discomfort, as someone moves you. But someone doing that craft cleverly and doing it with empathy and doing it with care can really help you understand that every decision we make starts emotional, but sometimes needs the numbers in order to give us the comfort that actually there's a proper plan in place here. And understanding both of those things, I think, is where it's where you need to go.
So this is incredibly hard for an individual to deal with. So I'm just going to do a little shout up for financial planners everywhere. Yeah. Like, it's incredibly hard for them. It's incredibly hard for you to try and understand and resonate with that person. So you shouldn't, as a financial advisor, beat yourself up if you can't move that person to perhaps where they'd be in a better place. They can't do it on their own. They'll be doing it better with you. Like, it is really incredibly difficult.
It's exceptionally difficult, because people will only go as far as they want to go, right? And if I don't want to go there, I don't care what you're saying to me. I'm not going to go there, right? Because of many reasons. You might be trying to open a real proper can of worms inside of me. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to open that can of worms. You could say to me, Neil, can we explore something with you? You know, you said that you weren't allowed to play Monopoly. What do you think it was with your mum and whatever? And I go, well, I think it's because the way she was brought up. She was brought up in a very frugal environment, you know, fractured family, because my nan, my mum's mum had, you know, a couple of husbands through time. And I could start peeling the layers back and try and find something. But that needs to be done carefully and with care too, because you don't want to take me to a place that I don't want to go. Because once that lid is off, it's incredibly difficult to put the lid back on. And so you need to work with people and take them as far as they're willing to go. But like I said, you need to do that with care and with empathy and just, you know, and respect. You know, people's stories, the story that makes Neil Bage, should be treated with respect. It's my story. And you can pry and you can, you know, metaphorically go back to chapter 1 and ask me any questions you want. But it's my story. And, you know, to say that, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you shouldn't think that, you know, prods at the very fabric of who I am. And so that's why I keep using that word. It should be done with care.
So you grew up with 4 sisters, so I'm
did.
sure lots of discussions about feelings and stuff. You would be very good at it. I grew up with 3 brothers. We had one feeling between us. It's actually my turn to have it next year.
Yeah.
So I'm
What's that feeling?
Excitement.
Brilliant. Love it. Why does that not surprise me? Yeah.
It is incredibly hard, but also just for any non-financial advisors listening, recognize that this person is, you know, putting their feelings on the line, trying to get this out. Because we do, my young brother, who's he's got the feeling this year. He said, Steve, that must be really hard for you, hearing about all people's deaths, illnesses, all their problems. And it is. So sometimes go easy on your advisor. If they screw up the numbers, have a go at them. But if they,
yeah,
you know, because they might be feeling rough about all this stuff they're taking on. Because it is hard.
Steve, it's hard. And let's be really kind of transparent and honest here, right? You know, you as a financial planner, financial advisor, you don't wear some kind of Teflon vest, right? You're not immune from absorbing my emotion. So if I'm sitting in your office and you're here, and I'm here because my partner's just passed away, or anything that's really emotional and difficult, you can't sit there and not absorb my sadness and the way, especially if we have a long-term relationship where it's more than a client, right? You care deeply about me. You cannot care deeply about me and not be impacted by that. And sometimes I think financial planners absorb a lot of emotion and don't cut themselves some slack in going, God, that was hard. That was a hard conversation. I feel sad. And I think there should always be a network of like-minded peers that in that situation you can turn to and talk to. Because it happens in counseling. Counselors talk to counselors. You know, it happens there because they can't not absorb. You know, and you need to get that off your chest so that you're healthy and you're in the best position to help other people. So it's I go back to something I said at the beginning of this conversation. We're trying the best we can. We're human. And it doesn't mean that we're broken in any way, shape, or form. It means we're human, and that's a great position to be in, right?
So we don't wear Teflon here. We wear costumes, sequins, that kind of thing. Quite a lot.
Sparkly socks.
But yeah, we do soak it up. So what I thought, Neil, for the rest, because now we've understood the basis of how the human mind works and what we're dealing with, I thought we could just run through a few subject areas where people that we deal with might have particular trouble with fairly often. And see what you think of that. So
you like to keep me on my toes.
I do. Well, told you.
You know, yeah.
So making financial decisions. So I often think that people are outsourcing their decisions to us. But ultimately, they have to sign it off. So this can cause a lot of mental anguish sometimes. Tell us what you know about the decision-making process in our ancient minds.
Well, we've kind of covered it off, Steve. You know, we need to make decisions every day, right? There's a random number that's been pushed around for years that we make 36,000 decisions every day. I question the number, but if you're including non-conscious decisions like breathing and blinking and things like that, maybe. But it doesn't kind of take away from the fact that we make a lot of decisions every day, right? I mean, just walking from the hotel to this office, right, which is a 5-minute walk, crossing the street, looking left and right, listening for sound. All of these are unconscious decisions that I need to make, right? But most decisions kind of have no significant impact if they go right or wrong. Do you want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? I'll have a cup of coffee. If it's a horrible coffee, who cares, right? It's not going to impact my life. But some decisions can have a long-term impact on your life. And financial decisions typically fall into that camp. That, make a bad financial decision, it can have a long-term impact on your life. It can have a long-term impact on, the way you live today, tomorrow, and into the future. And so for me, if I was being really honest, I would absolutely be always looking to kind of outsource big financial decisions, not exclusively. I want to be part of the process still, but I also need an expert to come alongside me to help navigate the complexities of making important big money decisions, because we're not equipped, we're not enumerate, we're emotional. And that's why most people put things off or procrastinate, because they go, this is in the too difficult bucket. Whereas having someone like you by my side helps me kind of outsource that part of my decision making to someone who has my best interests at heart, who understands the terrain that I'm trying to navigate, and actually just wants to help me thrive and survive, or thrive and flourish. And so financial decisions are notoriously difficult because they're emotional, and it's a new invention that we're trying to still deal with. So outsourcing it to someone who is an expert in mapping that terrain is only ever going to be a good thing.
I concur. Now, retirement.
Yeah.
So probably half of our clients are coming up to retirement or in the early years of it. And this has seen some of them go through some big issues. One fellow we took on this year said, Steve, I'm a natural. And so far he has been a natural at retirement. But for most people, they're struggling in one sense or another. Okay, because it's a whole different way of life, really. I liken it to looking back when you were a kid and you had no responsibilities and nothing to go off to do, sort of trying to find that person again.
Yeah.
What did you really like then?
Yep.
I like bird watching, so I might get back to that. So if you could go through some of the issues that are going on with our minds about retirement and what people are struggling with, that would be great.
So there's a bigger challenge that is like an elephant in the room, or maybe it's not an elephant in the room. Maybe it's just never talked about because people don't know it or want to talk about this. So let me go there. You spend your life working, and assuming a normal life, you spend your life working and saving and investing, and then you get to this point in life that is called retirement, right? And let's just say, for simple, but keeping it simple, you retire on January the 1st, 2026, right? It's coming up. I know it's coming up. We're in the back end of 25. I know that in a couple of months, I'm going to retire. And that is filled with excitement, and it's filled with excitement because of possibility. And you go, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, and we all have these amazing plans, which are brilliant, and we need those. There's a book called Life is in the Transitions, and the author is Bruce Feiler. And he says that as a species, we tend to go through what he calls disruptions in life. So someone hitting my car and I have to get insurance involved, that's a disruption.
Yeah.
But he also talks about what he calls life quakes. And a life quake is a significant moment that is like an earthquake. It completely rocks you to your core. And you typically you typically exit a life quake not the same person. So, my wife getting cancer was a life quake, right? The Neil who entered that situation was not the same Neil that exited that situation. And we typically don't see life quakes coming. They just land on our laps. It's like, what the? And you have to deal with it, right? But retirement is the life quake that we can see coming. And why is it a life quake? Because it changes your identity, your meaning, your purpose, your ability to do whatever you want. Your time, your schedule gets completely upended. All of your connections that you've had for 30, 40 years suddenly stop. It's a massive, massive psychological challenge. Yes, we need to be financially prepared, but we need to be psychologically prepared too. And the latter is what often gets ignored. People go, "Way, you've retired. Happy retirement. And look, how cool is this?" And then on January the 1st, I spend the first couple of weeks like I'm on holiday, because I've done that forever. I've taken 2 weeks holiday and I've been to the Canary Islands or whatever. And so my brain hasn't really kind of gotten into a groove yet. But then week 3, week 4, week 5, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this feels very odd, because I'm waking up. I don't have to be anywhere. All my work colleagues I don't speak to anymore. And there's a whole bunch of significant psychological challenges that often go undressed. So your job as a financial planner, yes, is to make me or give me the ability to retire when I want and know that I'm not going to run out of money and I can live a life of meaning and purpose. But if we don't address the fact that this is a life quake and that I need to navigate, I need to find out who I am. I need to, my whole identity is typically, I started this conversation with talking about my identity, and I started saying, well, I studied to be a PE teacher, blah, blah, blah. What about when all of that's stripped away? When all of your work identity, which is for us the majority of our life, what do you do when that's gone and you're not a worker anymore? You're a retiree, or you're unemployed, whatever the word is, right? We need to be as psychologically prepared to retire as we do financially, and that's not only your job as the person who is retiring. That's also my job. So I would say to people, find meaning and purpose as soon as you can. Find out what really you love doing as soon as you can, so that when you retire, you don't do what you just said. You don't go back and go, oh, well, what now? Who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? You know that stuff already. So it makes the transition a bit easier, but it's not just about the numbers. It's all about the emotion.
I find people okay at first, generally, and then after they've painted the shed, then those little bits and pieces they wanted to do, then the stereotypical world cruise or whatever it is.
Yep.
Then they come back. It's usually about 9 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, actually. And a lot of those people will just, I'll raise this like years before they're retired. Yeah, I'll be fine, Steve. They're the worst.
Yeah.
The ones that brush it off. And then it comes like a portcullis slamming down. Oh, here it is. And they haven't put in the work mentally beforehand to help them deal with it.
But Steve, there's another, a brain challenge here, is that we're not very good at prediction. We're not very good at imagining. We think we are. Like, what do you want to do when you retire? Oh, I'm going to go on a cruise. I'm going to paint the shed. I'm going to, whatever the things are, right? We have these long lists of things that we want to do. But the question is, well, actually, which of those gives you real meaning? And when I say meaning, I mean, you want to get out of bed in the morning. What gives you purpose? I want to get out of bed in the morning. I want to go out into the world and do something and still contribute and maybe make a difference and whatever that is. And what we do is, when we're 45 or 50 or 55 and retirement's on the horizon all of a sudden, we kind of go, you know what, when I retire, I'm going to do all of these things. But we're not very good at imagining. And they are typically kind of superficial, or they're the things, like you said, people tick off a list because that's what everybody does when they retire. And so the sooner you can find meaning and purpose, the sooner you can go, this gets me out of bed on a morning. I love doing this thing. It might be mentoring somebody. It might be doing something in your community. It might be fly fishing. It might be bird watching. I don't care what it is. It's the thing that when you wake up in the morning at the age of 65, then 70, then 75, you still go, I love doing this thing. This is me. And we tend to think that we can find that when we retire. My argument is that, no, you need to find that before you retire, because that will help with the transition.
And that doesn't have to be a big thing, does it?
Not at all.
Like change world peace or whatever.
No.
It can be a small thing. You can have multiple.
No, that's right.
Multiple.
You could say, do you know what I want to do? I think I'd like to volunteer. I think I'd like to volunteer in an old people's home or whatever, like 2 hours a week. It can be that small. Well, why wait till you retire? Find the 2 hours a week now and do it now and get introduced. You understand this.
Build it up.
Exactly. And then it's already there. So when you do retire, you've still got a diary full of things that you want to do and that you enjoy.
Yeah. Rather than starting again.
Right.
Essentially. Brilliant. Okay. So moving on now to the psychology of investing
Oh,
in shares or whatever.
that's a minefield.
I know, people go really bananas. That's gambling, Steve.
That's right.
For example. Oh, calm down. It's okay. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Investing in something you can't necessarily see, or it's paper, or it's pixels on a screen these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And there's a couple of things here. The first one is that, that evolutionary journey that we've all been on, we spent the first part of it, the amygdala on high alert, because if there's a rustle in the long grass, you don't want to go, oh, I wonder if that's dangerous or not. I wonder if it's a lion. And you run, you get out of there, and you hedge your bets, because it might be. And that allowed us to survive.
And if you did go over and check, you've probably got eaten, so your
Correct.
genes didn't survive.
Correct, right? That's exactly the story. But the challenge, that kind of behavior is hardwired into all of us. And so but in modern life, there ain't a lion in the long grass, but it's been replaced. We find other things to replace it. And one of them is red lines on a chart. You see a red line, you see a downward turn of money, which is already emotional. And you instantly go into that, oh, this is a threat. This is threatening to me. And most people can't articulate why, right? But they know it's a threat. They feel it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel comfortable. So that's the evolutionary backdrop that we all have to contend with when we invest. But then when we invest, we are all loss averse. Nobody wakes up and goes, I love losing. I love losing money. I love losing games. I love losing everything.
I'm a loser.
We're loss averse. So, and there is a well-known, well-trodden area of research here which talks about a loss aversion ratio. And the rule of thumb is that we are typically 2 to 1, or 2 times loss averse. So in order for you to risk £1, you would need to get 2 back.
Yeah.
Right, £10, £20. So it's like 2 to 1 typical ratio. Except the research I've done over the years shows that goes from 0.5 really risky people up to about 8 to 1. So for every £1 I risk, I want at least 8 back. Right, for me to feel comfortable, right? Taking that risk,
which is huge.
It's huge, and every human being sits on that continuum somewhere, right? So we're all loss averse, and we feel pain twice as much as we feel an equivalent gain. Right? That's the rule of thumb. So when I invest, I've got this evolutionary kind of backdrop playing out. I don't like losing, so that's another double whammy.
It's
but
delayed
equally,
gratification. It's
delayed gratification. There's a third one. I also don't like to realize any loss because I don't like losing. So there's a behavioral tendency called the disposition effect. And the disposition effect says that as markets fall, we tend to hold on to losers because we don't want to realize the loss. And as they rise, we cash out too early because, oh, I've made money. Take it. Yeah. It's gone down. Don't touch it. Leave it. It'll come back. It'll recover.
Come back.
So we have like the disposition effect kind of is playing out at the same time. I could list maybe, without really thinking about it, 6, 7, 8 unconscious behavioral biases that are at play all the time when we are investing, that we are completely unconscious of. We have no idea that they exist, but they are driving lots of the investment decisions that we make. And so investing, out of all the dimensions of money life, investing is fraught with psychology, our brains fighting against us. It's very unnatural to give you my money, to put it in a place where I could lose my money and not be able to touch it for a period of time, and also have the ability to watch it going up and down and ride that feelings roller coaster. So it's very, very difficult to do. And the best strategy, of course, is to invest for the long term, because that will typically give you the best returns, but also not to look at it.
Yes, don't look at it. I think technology has been awful for that.
Yeah.
So we have people, because we can check how often they log in, and they log in 2 or 3 times a day, but it only changes once a day.
Yeah. I know.
What are you doing? Are you forgetting?
I know. And you know what? I mentioned loss aversion. There's also another kind of another level down, which is called myopic loss aversion. A myopic loss aversion is where you have a tendency to be myopic, to kind of go, oh, I need to keep looking. I need to keep looking. I need to keep looking. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose. And it becomes this like death loop that you can't get out of. It's like, it's notoriously negative, to be in that situation where you're logging in 20 times a day. And for me, Steve, the question is, okay, why? What is it about this situation? Because there's always a story behind the story, right? You say, oh, I'm just checking. I'm interested. And you go, okay, there's a story behind this story. There's a real reason, maybe 5, 6, or 7 layers down, why this person is behaving like this.
Yeah.
And if we can engage people in those conversations, it might be that when they were a kid, them parents said, oh, if you say, make sure you always check your money, always check you've got enough money. And that one line may have tattooed itself into their head, and it's kind of grown legs.
Engraved.
Yeah, it's engraved. It's grown legs, and it's got worse than it really is. And maybe that's the answer. But, investing is a very difficult area psychologically to navigate, because it's fraught with multiple behavioral biases that are kind of trying to derail us. And the secret is to not look and really try and quieten, the urge to do something when don't do it. Yeah, do nothing.
One of our clients taught me a phrase, which I'll make people who are a kid do it, but got to be like the grass, Steve, bendy. So we stand up and we do some swaying.
Yeah.
Just go with it in the wind.
You've got to, and because one of the other areas with investing specifically, but money generally, is what's called the illusion of control. We think as a species that we have more control over things than we really do. We don't have control over a lot of things.
Hardly anything.
Life happens, right? Yeah. Life happens. I can try my hardest to control my health, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to get ill. All of these we think we can control. One kind of rule of thumb, if you like, or the golden rule is you can't control stock markets at all. Like 0%. Yeah. You have no influence over stock markets. So if you are investing in stock markets, you need to accept that they go up and they go down, right? And so you can't control it. But what you can control is your response to the feelings that are being generated. So if I feel anxious, I need to address why I feel anxious, because I'm not going to change the stock market. I'm not going to change the fact I need to invest for the long term. But I can control how I feel, not how I feel. I can control my response to my feelings, and working with someone who can come alongside you and help you navigate that uncertainty is a godsend, because sometimes it's very difficult to do that yourself.
I think that's the answer to everything in life, really, isn't it? You can only control yourself and how you feel. So whether it's stock markets, relationships, other people, whatever. My donut consumption, it's all down to me.
Yeah, that's right.
And what I do and how I think and feel about it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Steve. Especially when you lift this out of the money world into just a life generally. It's a good life tip. We can control how we respond to things, right? And so when somebody annoys you, or you feel like an argument is about to ensue, if you put yourself into a position of being able to pause and say, why do I feel like this? What is it about this person that is making me feel like this? That pause might be enough to kind of stop something, turning into something that it doesn't need to turn into. We can control how we respond to the world. And if we can focus on that, maybe we can make better, smarter decisions all around.
That's it. So, Neil, this has been 50 odd minutes.
Has it?
Yeah. That's what happens when you listen to the best voice in financial planning.
No, you're too kind. I can't believe it's 50 minutes as well.
So, we're going to wrap it up there because my recording equipment will run out of storage, essentially. So, I think just to wrap up, life's hard, right?
Life's tough.
And our brains go wrong from time to time, every day. Mm-hmm. Something we won't do the best. But it's dealing with so much, it's no surprise.
That's right.
That it's going to do that. That ekes its way into money decisions, right? But you're not alone. We are not alone. There's 8 billion of us, right? Find someone, whether it's a financial planner or a mate or someone who's sensible that will help you sort of navigate this and maybe make better decisions. So, Neil, what is your final golden nugget, number one rule that everybody should stick to in order to be happier, be calmer about money? What is it? I hope you got one. I've just sort of put this on you.
I mean, that's like the biggest question ever. But I tell you what, I would kind of just cut yourself some slack. You just said it. Life's tough, right? Making decisions is tough. And you wake up every day. I've used this phrase already. We wake up every day and we try our hardest to live a good life with the hand that life has dealt us, right? Does that mean we're going to screw up now and again? Yes, it does. Does that mean that the brain, kind of the little glitchy brain in our head, is going to kind of derail us now and again? Yes, it is. It is. Absolute. That's how it's wired. It's wired for survive, to allow it to survive and thrive.
Yeah.
It's not been built to deal with money or all of the other man-made inventions. So sometimes we just need to go, you know what? This is tough. This is hard. And just cutting yourself slack, giving yourself permission to look at the world and go, this is hard. There's a great phrase, people aren't dumb. The world is hard, right? And it's just a really succinct way of saying, I'm trying my best. And sometimes if you struggle, reach out to people. There's always people who you can kind of reach out to who are willing to help you. But it all starts with you giving yourself permission just to go, this is tough.
Start with that. Take it easy on yourself. And then look for the things that are exciting, that makes life such a wonderful thing. There you go. That's a good way to end, isn't it?
I should have said that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful moment.
It is.
Right. Thanks very much, Neil Bage. Look
You're
him
welcome.
up, people. And you'll find lots of good information on him. It's been fascinating. And now we're going to leave you with our wonderful outro music.
Cool.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Steve.